everyone, and welcome back to Canal Sidings for video number 9. As you can see, I've been doing some more work on the factory, and I fitted the windows, and I've also painted the concrete sections, which the last time you saw them were just grey primer. I've taken a tip from Kathy Millett on her YouTube channel, where she uses as a base concrete colour before weathering a Tamiya colour XF55 deck tan, and I think it produces a very good starting point for concrete, better than Woodland Scenic concrete paint that I've tried. So I'm very happy. Thanks for that, Kathy. I haven't yet fitted any floors or any dividing walls because I'm still thinking about that, but if I turn it round I'll show you what I've actually done with the construction. So here we have the view from the back. The back scene actually sits along that line there, so there's no wall in there yet. I will fit a piece of plain plastic card eventually, but in the short term it'll be left open. My intention is to fit a floor at this level and a loading dock which is just above it, so there'll be a bit of a step down from the loading dock, and that floor will go all the way around the whole base of the building. I intend to put a divider from this wall all the way down, so that area there will be the loading dock. The area behind it will be some kind of office, with only this window and this window showing. I've got to fit half windows in there and in these, which I haven't done yet. I'll then put a floor up here, and then I've got to decide what I'm going to do on that level, another floor here, and decide what I'm going to do on that level, and then the roof goes on, and then I've got to decide what I'm going to do in here before the roof goes on that. With such big windows it is going to be easy to see in, although luckily what we can see are only these few here, and then the smaller ones around this way. So the interior is going to take quite a lot of planning and take quite a lot of work, but I don't intend to actually carry on with that yet. For reasons that I'll go into later, I'm going to go onto the other baseboard again and back to the sector plate end, where I need to do quite a lot of work to get the vehicle system installed. I need to put some more of the black base down for the vehicle system on that board, but before I can do that I need to sort out the canal siding itself, sort out where the edge of the canal basin is going to be, and install the wagon turntable, and that's what I'm going to do next. But before I do that, I have a little clip of video to show you which demonstrates how I used very thin paint to put the mortar lines in between the bricks on all these sections. So we'll look at that, and then after that we'll go to the other end of the layout and we'll talk about that. So we have a wall which has been primed. That's this bright grey you can see here, and these sections and all the others which you can't see have been painted with the basic brick colour. And I'm going to take this section here and I'm going to try to show you how we get the mortar in. What I've got is some paint mixed up here, which as you can see is almost all thinners, hardly any paint at all, and it's simply Humbrol number 121 thinned down to almost water. So I'm going to load the brush up quite a lot, as we can see, and touch it as near I can into a gap, and hopefully you can see the way that flows into the mortar lines. It does leave a very small amount of paint on the top of the original colour, but because it is so thin and so little is able to sit there, most of it ends up in the brickwork, and what doesn't end up in the brickwork does sit on top. But as I say, the paint is so thin that it doesn't notice on top of the original colour of brick. But advice would be, if you try this, go one shade darker in your brick colour than you originally wanted, and then the slight lightening that you'll get by adding the mortar will not make too much difference, and will give you the brick colour that you originally wanted. I'm going rather quickly here to try and get the whole thing done. I would normally be a little more careful about where I put it, because the less touches you make, the further you can get the paint to run, the better. And as you can see, it's already pretty much running everywhere. A little bit there missing. And if you now compare that to the section next to it, which is that, I think you can see that we have mortar in the mortar lines, whereas we don't there. Okay, so what I've got here is the linear actuator, which I intend to use to move my wagon in and out of the warehouse, and hence on and off of the wagon turntable. Unfortunately, what I needed was something that was servo controlled, because servos are very easy to set up to get accurate end stops and good low speed movement. But I also needed something that had a throw of something like 4 inches and a bit. And I looked at what you can buy, and there are 1 or 2 things that you can buy online, but the type that seems to be most readily available and will do 4 inches, which actually might be a bit tight anyway, are about £75 or £80 each, and they've got massive amounts of torque, and they're meant for much more than I want. Moving my wagon is going to require no torque whatsoever, just accurate movement. So while I was looking, I came across a YouTube channel, Roger Rabbit YouTube channel, and Roger is a guy from Switzerland, and he's a really helpful chap, and I spoke to him via his channel, and he agreed to sell me one of his actuators so I could have a good look at it and see whether it was the sort of thing I wanted. It didn't do what I needed to do because it wasn't a lot, didn't have enough movement, but I carried on watching his channel, and he said he'd have something later on. Carried on watching his channel, and sure enough he's come up with this baby. He's got a name for it, I can't remember what it is, but essentially it just uses a servo, a 9G servo, and it's geared up such that this gear wheel here that moves the actuator rod turns at a faster rate than the servo output shaft, which has the effect of reducing the amount of torque that you've got on here over what you could normally get out of the servo. But as I say, I don't need lots of torque. And when I saw this on Roger's channel, I spoke to him about it again and asked him, and he said have a look at this video, and there was another one up there, and he was showing this doing 120 millimeters of movement. I mean, that's 5 inches pretty much. I thought I must be able to get that to work for me. So I contacted him again and said, can I buy one off of you? And he agreed, and he charged me, including postage and PayPal fee, £16. A lot better than £80. I could have got something with a hell of a lot more torque. As I say, the channel is Roger Rabbit. Do go over there and have a look at what he's got. He's not a railway modeller. He's, I think he calls himself an inventor or a builder or something like that. But it's an interesting channel. Most of it is devoted to doing things with servos. I'll put a link to Roger's channel in the text at the bottom of the video, in the description. That's what I'm trying to think of, in the description at the bottom of the video, so that you can go over to his channel and have a look. And if he's got anything that you might want, then have a chat with him. Helpful guy. Okay, as I say, that's what this is. I've put it together and we'll just give it a quick test now. Okay, let's give it a test then. I've got another Merg kit here, which is the Merg servo tester, another one of the pocket money projects. Simply uses a 555 timer and a pot to move the servo. You power it up from 9 volts, which is what I'm doing here from my power supply, and then you plug the servo into it. There'll probably be a kick because I've moved the pot. I plug the servo in here. There we go. And now, as I turn, get that wire as much out of the way as I can. As I turn this pot, so the servo moves. The faster I turn the pot, the faster the servo moves. And it's not gutless. If I lean it against the cup, it'll push itself away. It's not gutless by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly got enough torque for what I need. What I'm going to need to do, of course, is go much more like this kind of speed. The jerkiness is the fact that I can't turn this pot and get from one pulse width to the next evenly, whereas the Servo 4 that I will use to drive it, the Merg Servo 4, is actually digitally controlled and will produce perfect steps without any jerkiness. So let's take it away. What I need to do is set it up. So I'll get my PC out. I won't show you the setup process. I'll just set it up to go about the distance I need from a Servo 4, and I'll adjust the Servo 4, and then we can take it over to the layout and have a look at exactly how I might use it. Okay then, what we have here is the test setup to show how I intend to move the wagon on and off of the turntable, and hence in and out of the warehouse. What we have here is the linear actuator, which is servo driven. On the back of it there is a normal 9G servo, and that's being driven by a Merg Servo 4 board, which we've seen before, which is just being powered by 12 volts from these two wires. And I've programmed the Merg board such that it will drive the actuator in a typical way to the way I want it, and I've just got these two wires which I can join together to move the actuator. So let's assume that we're in the position at the moment where we have a wagon on the turntable, it's been turned and it's ready to be drawn into the warehouse. On this end of the actuator there will be a coupling which will be able to couple onto the wagon and pull it back into the warehouse. So the first thing we need to do is we need to move that coupling out to the wagon. So we move it out. That would then couple onto the wagon, and then we can move it back. I'll just open the switch. It moves back and you'll see a little jiggle which uncouples, sets the Spratt and Winkle coupling into delayed mode. The wagon is in the warehouse and we are now ready for some time in the future to push the wagon back out with the coupling in delayed mode, such that we can leave it back on the turntable, retract the coupling arm, which of course won't move the wagon this time because the coupling is in delayed mode, was in delayed mode, and that should leave the wagon on the turntable ready to be turned and taken away by the loco. That's the theory. What we've got to do now is build it all together and see if we can make it work. Okay, I've just moved over to the layout now, and I've brought the servo board with its 12-volt power supply here, and I've temporarily dropped the wagon turntable into place, and I've put the track that would lead into the warehouse. I've got the actuator sitting here, but it doesn't actually drive anything because I can't fix it down yet. I don't know exactly where it's got to go. But in order to move the wagon, the actuator will move this sled at the back here, which is actually an old 4mm scale bogie from a loco that I no longer use. And what the actuator has got to do, if I can do this without derailing everything, I can grab that into there, like that. What the actuator has got to do is move this to there, onto the turntable, and stop it without doing that and dropping off the edge, and then back again. So a little shimmy to do the uncouple, which is what you actually see happen when we drive the actuator, and I'll just do that by connecting these two wires together. That would be pulling the wagon out onto the turntable. It would be there. Now I'll disconnect these two wires if I can, and that'll push the wagon back, do the little shimmy to uncouple it. Now this actuator, oops, is going to have to be about, oh dear, I keep knocking it trying to get the hand out of the way. It's going to have to be about where it is, although I shall turn it round so that the servo is on this side. I just programmed it away from the layout to get myself something like the amount of movement, and I've programmed it backwards with this on the wrong side. I will move it, I will reprogram it, and then I can put the servo on this side. The actuator sitting here will be inside a building, which there's a line here which is the typical front line of the building that I wanted, and as you can see the wagon goes just past the front of it to get in the doorway. The building can then turn a corner here because the servo won't be there, and can go around here to the back scene, another part of the building over here, and between them an archway to allow this actuator rod to go right across inside the building hidden. The reason for the archway, of course, is that coming along here is the roadway system, and it needs to be able to get through this back scene somewhere in order to get to its reversing loop so that the vehicles can turn round and come back the other way. As you can see, I'm very limited in space up here because just here, I don't know if you can see, just above where I am now, if I go to there, I am now hanging over one of the tracks of the sector plate, which is right behind me. Indeed, these two rails here are actually going to hang over the sector plate, but as long as I don't have any sleepers underneath them, they should be fine. They won't they won't be able to catch up on anything, and the sector plate is as far this way as it ever comes. It's actually sitting over there, again off screen where you can't see, against its limit switch, so it cannot come any closer to me. From here it only ever goes that way, and as the pivot point of it is here, it's in this line here, this will only ever move away from it, it won't come any closer. So that's the theory. What I've got to do next is try and fit it all together, do some calculations of how high I need to set this, such that this actuator arm can be hidden in an archway which is high enough to allow the vehicles to get underneath it as they go off scene or on scene, and then I've got to actually design and build the buildings. The other thing that I want to do is to do with the actual turntable. This is the P&H Designs turntable, that's Peter Harvey, and it is very small. I'm sure it's dead scale for that kind of turntable, because they were normally used in the days of wagons with 9-foot wheelbases. Modern wagons, we'll just pick this one up and have a look at it, and of course it's coupled to this is just a tension lock coupling at the moment. Modern wagons have a 10-foot wheelbase. If we lift this out of here, it's alright, it's actually going through the baseboard and I can't lift it. There it is. Now let me take it out. Okay, if we look at just what a tight fit the wagon is on there, I don't know if you can see this. There we go. I put the wagon on the turntable. I think you can see there that it is pretty tight. This is a 10-foot wheelbase wagon, which is the norm that I'm going to be using. That to me is going to be too tight for what I'm trying to do, which is position the wagon on the turntable fully automatically, time after time after time. So what I'm probably going to do is design a new wagon turntable, which will use a piece of copper clad board and some rail, and I'll just solder it on. I can cheat because I only need this turntable. We'll look at it again now. I only need this turntable to be able to turn from there to there and back again. It's not like a locomotive turntable where it has to turn all the way round. It doesn't have to go right the way round, and indeed it gets stiff there because my cutting wasn't very good. It also gets stiff there, but here it's perfect. What I intend to do is simply have a couple of continuous rails across here, fill in with 6 pieces of rail here onto a piece of copper clad board which is circular shaped, and then just make the cuts where I need to make them. Just chop the rail there, there, there and there to allow the wagon to run on, and token cuts here, here, here and here, just so that it looks right, but I can do all that after I've soldered the rails in place. That's the theory. I've got a bit of copper clad board on order. I'll cut a circle out of it, and then we'll see if I can make myself a turntable. And what I'll do is I'll make it larger than this. I'll make it a foot more in diameter, scale foot that is, which is another 4mm, which is amazingly different in size. I have a piece of track over here which I have cut to the larger size, and if I hold it against, I can get that to stay still. If I hold it against there, you can see that it is quite a lot longer. That's just 4mm more than that turntable, but there is a lot more clearance if I drop a wagon on top here. Get it on the track from this stupid angle. It's very hard to hold this because it's SMP track and it's very flexible. But I think you can see I have a lot more leeway now of getting the wagon in position on the table. So that's the theory. I need to go away now and try to turn it into practice. And finally for this video, as it's already now gone on long enough and I've got a lot more work to do before I can show you anything else. If you remember last time, Huey had a new friend and I was looking for a name for Huey's new friend. I had a lot of good suggestions. Thank everybody for taking their time to think up a name. There were some good ones like the obvious choice, Landy, and there was Andy and Hewson, which I thought was quite clever, and there were lots of others. The ones any I've forgotten I apologise for, but the one I've chosen actually was offered to me by the guy who keeps on at me about Land Rovers on my railway anyway, my friend Len. And he came up for very obvious reasons, as he said, with Lenny the Land Rover. So that is what Huey's new friend's name is, Lenny. For anybody who doesn't remember Huey and his new friend, this is Huey. His name his registration number is HUE, and this is his new friend, who shall now forever be called Lenny. So thanks for everybody who participated in that. There were some good suggestions, but I said I would choose one, and I have. It is Lenny. So I'll wrap this video up now. I'll say thanks for watching. If you like me, please subscribe and give me a like. Any questions or any comments, please feel free to comment. I will answer all of them if I possibly can. So far I've managed to answer everything. And I'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks with another video. So, thanks very much. Goodbye everybody.